Greetings, members, one and all of the Salivation Nation. One of the biggest gold and silver heists in history just happened. Let's explore. Indeed, earlier this month, a lot of gold and silver was stolen. We don't know exactly how much. I'll tell you why here in a moment. But usually when you do think about gold and silver being stolen, it's usually in a form like this, or like that. Or perhaps you might even think of it in terms of coins, which is usually how we think of gold and silver. But it can also come in the form such as this, in cast bars. And likely, and if it's a whole lot, you would think it would come that way in these large cast bars, coins, and different forms that gold can be taken, and silver as well too. Several members of the community shared this story with me, and I thought it was quite fascinating and quite brazen. Before I get to it, I want to remind you that I do post videos on a daily basis. If you enjoy the content that you see here, which is related to precious metals, every aspect of precious metals, from precious metals news in terms of things like this that make the news, like stolen gold and silver, found precious metals, as well as the markets and how they move from day to day, and showcasing beautiful gold and silver pieces, and other precious metals and metals as well. Hope you will consider watching daily, as I do post videos every day. But several of my viewers have sent me emails about this story. Fascinating indeed. This comes to us out of Mexico from the dailynews.com about an amazing story about silver and gold and televisions stolen from a Mexican port. And it's something when you hear of things being stolen, usually you think about it in one vehicle, or in one container. But we're talking 20 freight containers that were stolen full of gold, silver. And it's not what you think. Let's get into it. It was a golden opportunity. Well-organized thieves in Mexico stole 20 freight containers full of gold ore, silver ore, and televisions and got away clean. Now think about that for a moment. They didn't steal the actual gold and silver, but they stole gold and silver ore mixed up with televisions in between 20 containers. And by organized thieves, we're talking about an organized crime syndicate here. At least 12 armed thieves hit the port of Manzanillo on June 5th. We're going to look at another story that says there were 10. But nonetheless, some of the details are a little bit sketchy here. But they loaded the containers onto trucks and simply drove them away, authorities told El País. It is unprecedented. There had been no robbery of this nature before. State Security spokesman Gustavo Adrian Hoya said they were very selective about the type of goods that were stolen, especially the precious metals. And this is an example of a shipyard full of these containers, the specialized container terminal in SSA, Mexico, at the port of Manzanillo. So not a single bullet was fired during the heist. The attackers broke in and physically subdued the security team at the private freight yard. With the employees at Maniobras Alonso Mireles tied up, they went through the containers to find the specific cargo they wanted. By the way, I think they spent a couple hours doing that. Mexico's Navy is in charge of security at the port of Manzanillo, Mexico's second largest seaport. But they were quick to point out that the thieves hit a private yard that was outside of their jurisdiction. The company did not have the infrastructure that a place of this nature requires, Hoya told El País. More than likely, the thieves knew that. The containers, their contents, and the attackers have not been seen since. Mexican authorities said it was an organized crime operation. Though the appeal of the TVs was obvious for their black market value, authorities struggled to see the purpose of taking gold ore and silver ore because it requires further processing, a theme that carries over to our next story about this, which there's some repeat, but I think it's worth mentioning here from USA Today by way of the Associated Press, or Associated Press by way of USA Today. Thieves steal 20 freight containers loaded with gold, silver, ore, and TVs at the port. Thieves broke into a freight storage area at the Pacific Coast seaport of Manzanillo and stole these 20 freight containers. And they show it here as not just ore, but partly refined gold and silver ore and television sets. I think that is a distinction that I think is worth noting, and we'll get to that in a moment. Jose Medina Mora, president of the Federation, said the large-scale robbery was a sign of rising crime in Mexico. There is a growing lack of safety, and this is a sign of what is happening in the country, and it requires that the authorities take action, Medina Mora said. Well, that's the understatement of the year, right? The state of Colima, where Manzanillo is, has not officially commented on the June 5th robbery. But Horacio Duarte, head of Mexico's Customs Service, confirmed the robbery and said organized crime was involved. This was a very serious organized crime operation, Duarte said. According to local press reports, about 10, instead of 12, as the other story mentioned, armed thieves forced their way into a private freight dispatch yard near the port, subdued employees, and then took several hours to search for the shipping containers that they wanted. The thieves then apparently hooked up the containers to trucks and drove away with them. No sign of the containers or their contents has been seen since. And usually we think that when they're done with the containers, they would jettison them because they have no need for them. But they probably realized that likely they would be holding clues. So that's probably why they have them. Who knows? Freight theft, though, is a serious problem in Mexico. But it usually involves thieves hijacking one truck at a time on highways, not driving off with 20 freight containers. Articles like television sets are usually quickly sold off in the country's extensive black markets, but it was unclear where thieves could sell tons of partly processed gold and silver ore. Any refiner would be likely to ask questions about where it came from. We'll get to that in just a moment, as that's our reoccurring theme here. Prosecutors and police in Colima have had a more pressing problem on their hands, with residents blocking roads to protest kidnapping and killing of local people. 2 police officers have been shot to death so far this month in the state, which is dominated by the Jalisco drug cartel. I tell you what, that's probably some of the reason why you're seeing some people come to the United States out of Mexico. It's pretty bad news down there, but nonetheless, they need to crack down on the cartels and the crime syndicates that are there. Very unfortunate. But nonetheless, organized crime, very organized. That's the theme here. And so I can answer their question. Both these articles say, well, it is unclear where thieves could sell tons of partly processed gold and silver ore. Well, the USA Today story gives us a little bit more clue than the other story that we read here on the Daily News, because they just mention it as ore. So this means that it is partly processed, and this says it requires further processing. Now, I don't know exactly how that relates or what is considered ore as opposed to doré. So doré are partially processed bars. So if they are in the form of bars, like doré bars, then they can much easier process that themselves. But even if it was in the form of some sort of a rock or something like that, to that degree where it's been broken down, likely they have a way to process it themselves. There's a lot of black market gold and blood gold, as it's called, that happens in other areas, and especially since they can just use mercury and other things to further refine it out, which is exactly what happens in some of this illegal gold mining that happens in nations like Peru. I've actually talked about that on my channel some time ago. So to me, that's the easiest question to answer. They'll process it themselves. If they're going to take the time to organize this kind of of theft, this heist, as it were, and not just silver heist, it's silver ore heist and gold heist. And but if they were to take that time and organize this and actually make that happen, they've got a way to process that ore, and it will be completely untraceable. And this is, by the way, the stories like this is what is going to bolster this ESG rating to supposedly crack down on things like this. However, as bad as this is, the idea of ESG and tracking mechanisms is a lot worse overall for society. But this is definitely bad news, and any kind of theft is horrible. But regardless, I think there's other ways to be able to crack down on this and to make sure that gold is coming from legitimate and clean sources than what they want to do to track it down the road. So there you have it. Let me know what your thoughts are. Fascinating story. Gold and silver. I tell you what, have it, hold on to it. And thankfully, most of us here, we get it the legal way. We buy it, and we don't have to process it. It's already been processed. So there you go. But organized crime, they are pretty resourceful. So there you go. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Would like to extend to all of you a multitude of gratitude for taking the time to watch. And if you are interested in stories like this will be a part of a playlist called Precious Metals Crimes, with numerous videos that I put in that playlist. And I want to thank again the handful of you who have sent me links to this story. I actually wanted to get to it before, but had other pressing news, related precious metals news to get to first. But thank you again. My viewers are amazing. Thank you guys so much. A multitude of gratitude to all of you taking the time to watch this video. And I want to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.